Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Desert Water Agency Board of Directors. I'd like to call this meeting to order on February 5th, 2025 at 8 o'clock. Some housekeeping. For those of us in the room that have electronic devices, if you could mute those for the time being. And for those of us participating remotely, please mute your microphones unless you're ready to speak during public comment or where appropriate. The information for attending virtually is included on our posted agenda, which is available on our website. And with that, I will call on directors in the following roll call order: Director Gracia, Director McKenna, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega, and all votes will be conducted via roll call. And with that, I would like to ask Director Gracia to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is our roll call. Ms. Baca, could you conduct that for us, please?
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director McKenna,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Present.
and Vice President Bowman's absence is noted. President Ortega.
Present. Thank you. Item 4 would be public comments on items not on today's agenda. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board about an item that's related to the agency's business, but it's not necessarily on today's agenda. We ask that speakers keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes. And as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items that are not listed on today's agenda. Ms. Baca, have we received any public comments today?
No comments have been received.
Okay, thank you. And are there members of the public that would like to participate? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, public comments on items listed on the agenda. Similarly, ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes if there's an item on today's agenda that you would like to speak about. And seeing none, we can move to the next item. We have item 6. General Manager Johnson, would you like to?
Thank you, President Ortega. I would have a suggestion that we can move this item to after the action items, if the board would like. Therefore, since we do have someone in the public audience for one of the action items, if the board would like to entertain that, we can do that.
Yeah, we actually have both applicants. The other is online, virtually online, joining us. Not applicants, but appellants. Any opposition to doing that, making that change? No? All right, so we will, item 8, which is our action items, will follow next, and then the presentation, we can move to the position that action item or action items.
There is consent items first,
Yes,
and then the actions.
that's right. Yeah, thank you. So with that, I'll go to action item 8A, which is a request board action on customer appeal, James Redding, and Mr. Tate. Oh, do we want to do the consent calendar first? Is that what you were asking me?
You can do consent,
Okay.
And then
I didn't understand that. Okay, sure. We can do the consent calendar first. Thank you.
Mr. President, I move item 7, the consent calendar, as presented.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. I have a first from Director Gracia, a second from Secretary Treasurer McKenna. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. It's a bad habit, an old habit, I guess. So may we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. And now we can move to action item 8A, request board action on customer appeal, James Redding, and that would be Mr. Tate. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Today I have an action item for a customer appeal for James Redding. In 2019, the Board of Directors adopted Resolution 1224 for a policy for discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment. This resolution is in accordance with Senate Bill 998, which imposes new and expanded customer protection regarding the discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment. The resolution addresses procedures for a customer to contest an appeal for a bill. The customer is allowed to request an investigation into the water bill and appeal the results of the investigation to the Board of Directors. The decision of the Board of Directors shall be final. Per the resolution, we have scheduled this action item before the Board of Directors. The appellant, Mr. Redding, is requesting a credit or discount for his November 2024 bill. Let's see in attachment 1. The 2024 November bill showed the meter registered 138 units of consumption for his property. The 3-year average November consumption for the property is 10 units. Utilizing the November average, the maximum credit would be $312.32 for 128 units. Mr. Redding is requesting relief due to excessive consumption. The following is a summary of events regarding the November 2024 bill for his property. On November 1st, the meter read was collected. On November 4th, a physical reread was collected. No motion on the meter, and average consumption was shown at that time. The meter data logging showed high consumption between October 15th and October 22nd. That's in attachment 2. On October 15th, the customer paid the November bill. On November 19th, Field Services Supervisor Mr. Nelson spoke to Mr. Redding on the phone regarding the reread and possible causes of the increase. Mr. Redding said he would have the property checked. On December 18th, the meter was replaced due to age according to established schedule agency policy after 20 years. The meter was tested at DWA with a 98% accuracy at high flow and 100% accuracy at medium flow. On December 30th, the customer filed the dispute. On January 2nd, Field Services Supervisor Mr. Nelson spoke to Mr. Redding on the phone regarding the consumption, the reread, the data logging. Mr. Redding stated that his pool man had checked the property and replaced irrigation valves, but feels there is no issue at the property. On January 7th, 2025, the dispute was denied. A letter and email were sent to the customer. On January 7th, the appeal was received. The fiscal impact. If the board decides to deny the appeal, there will be no fiscal impact. If the board decides to grant the appeal, the agency may credit the account up to $312.32. Finance Director Sines has reviewed this report. Staff recommendation. Customer consumption is billed based on the water that is passed through the meter without regard for how the water is used. In addition, Article 13D of the California Constitution, commonly known as Prop 218, for property-related fees and charges states that, 1, the amount of a fee or charge imposed upon a parcel as incident of property ownership shall not exceed the proportional cost of the service attributed to the parcel. And 2, no fee or charge may be imposed for a service unless that service is actually used by
or immediately available to the owner of the property in question. That is the combination of the two. Crediting the customer's bill would in essence transfer this bill to all other agency customers who did not consume the water, thus potentially running afoul of the California Constitution and Prop 218. Based on the meter read, the reread at the property, the data logging information, the meter accuracy results, staff recommends that the Board of Directors deny Mr. Redding's appeal. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have questions?
Well, how did it become necessary to change out that meter at?
Every
Middle of-
20 years, we take the meters out. That's just a policy with the agency. His meter was installed in January of, or December of 2004, right? Roughly that time. There's a 20-year
Okay.
time period. After 20 years, the meters are pulled and replaced. So it was coincidental.
And the read on the new meter was generally the same as the old meter in terms of, what, was it changed out in the middle of his issue
It
here?
was after the issue.
Okay,
So after in the middle of December, it was changed out, and the issue was in the middle of October.
right.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Director McKenna?
I have nothing at the moment. I may have a question when we hear from the appellant.
We'll have an opportunity for that too.
No
Secretary
questions.
Treasurer. Okay, all right. I do have a question. You mentioned, if we could go back to the timeline, the summary of the timeline. You say that the meter data logging showed high consumption was between 10:15 and 10:22. How do we have that level of detail for a meter that old?
So the registers have been upgraded with was it the AMI? The ERT. So the register was upgraded with the ERT. The meter is the same meter. The body of the meter stays the same, but the register is replaced with a more modernized register.
So was when you have the date of November 1st, meter read collected, was that done through AMI or was that a physical read?
That
So for our metering, we go out every month to read the meter, and at that point in time, it downloads 40 days of consumption from that device that is placed on the meter.
Mhm.
So that's how we were able to obtain the 1015 through 22. Can you remind me what the other part of the question was?
Well, just the level of detail that we have for this particular
So there's a
appeal.
graph.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had asked if it was collected through AMI.
Yes.
So AMI is advanced metering infrastructure. So we are not to that place yet where we have put up the towers and on a daily basis, we are bringing those meter reads back into the office. But we are able to, when we go and read the meter on a monthly basis, obtain those daily meter reads. It just is a delay in us actually obtaining that information. So there is a delay. We have the detail. We receive it after the fact rather than when it's happening. But after we install those towers, repeaters, and collectors to be able to collect the meter reading on a daily basis, even down to the hour, we will have that information quicker. So that's the reason for the delay. It was not collected through AMI, but we do have the advanced meter component on that meter that allows us to get that daily information. It's just not available in real time.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. All right, I don't have any other questions, so I think the appellant is in the audience. If you'd like to come forward. Yes or no? Okay. Would you like to come forward, sir? Yes. Okay.
The spike occurred October 15th to the 22nd of 90 to 100,000 gallons. So the month after, the reading was 3,740 gallons at $54. So I did have a spike occur 9/20/2020, and I was refunded $162. So I think the meter, I'm sure it's a 96% accuracy, but I guess I'm here for the 4% difference.
Can you, would you mind explaining why you had that spike in 2020?
I can't explain it. We were gone from July 4th to December. So it was just the outside watering. We had everything double checked, all the emitters, the pool person checked, everything was okay.
Okay.
It's just a heavy duty spike.
Okay. All right, Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
Did you request that the meter be pulled to be tested? Or did you guys?
Was tested, I believe.
It was we test all the meters once we pull them due to age. So once they pulled it, brought it in, they tested it on our bench, and that's how we have those two tests done.
Okay, and so the two items aren't connected, but they're part of the record here, where we pulled his meter and tested it.
It just so
It's an
happened that
evidentiary problem. I have that.
it just so happened that we pulled the meter because it was a 20-year-old meter that it was pulled. Just randomly, it ended up being pulled within the month after this happened.
Right.
It was unrelated.
Tie goes to the runner. Thank you.
Director McKenna, do you have questions?
I see a reference in the notes to an irrigation valve being replaced.
I did that as a precaution.
Okay.
It didn't need it, but I did it anyway, which cost me $350.
Is this one valve or all of them?
Two valves.
Two valves, okay.
Irrigation valves.
And do you know when that happened? Do you have a date that was done?
In December,
In December. Okay.
after we returned to the property.
Okay, that's my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna, sorry, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
It's all good. Do you have, did you overseed or anything in October that would have caused extra watering
No,
on
no. Should have been.
grass?
Should have been very similar each month since it's on a timer.
Sometimes that with you, do you have turf in your yard?
No, all desert.
Oh, okay. That was my only question.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for staff regarding this refund in 2020. Do we understand what that was related to?
So we investigated the refund in 2020. There was a different field service supervisor at that point in time, and he did allow a credit of that amount. Since that time, we've put more policies and procedures in place of how we administer our refunds and the process that our customers have to go through when they have a high bill spike. So now our process is if there is a high bill and presumably from some sort of leak or such, if the customer applies for our Help to Others program through the United Way and they receive a credit, in other words, they are validated that they are low income, because in order to receive the credit from United Way for $200, it not only helps to cover the bill, but also verifies for us that they are low income and qualify based off of need. So that's the first step, as well as the bill needs to be, I believe, 3 times higher than their consumption during the same month of the previous 3 years. So there's a couple conditions that need to be met. Well, and So we were able to, so this account would apply, qualify as far as how much the water bill was. Also, another condition is that we see the repair bill, I believe the repair bill, and so then they can get credited back, I believe, the difference of the amount of the spike over their consumption, which is what we've calculated here, as well as, I believe, assistance on the repair. So, I mean, those are the programs. So we follow those guidelines now, which were not in place like that during that time frame.
Are you saying that this would have fallen under the low income?
No,
Threshold?
I'm saying that that condition in this case has not been met because help to others has not been applied for and received. It was offered as a part of our original response, saying that, you know, we do have this program, and if you meet these conditions, then this is what is the credit that would be available to you.
So so a credit would only be applicable. I'm a little confused about where the help to others comes in play here. I mean, if an applicant doesn't qualify for help, sorry, if the applicant doesn't qualify, it's almost sounding like you're saying that that's like, if you don't qualify for that, then you're not going to get a credit.
That
as
is
opposed
correct.
to as opposed to just taking that out of the equation and saying, oh, you had this spike, which I think you said was 3 times the average bill.
Mhm.
And also, oh, by the way, you also showed us that you made repairs to the issue. I guess I'm confused about that first qualification and why that's relevant.
That is our program for low income assistance, and it is specific to low income, so that we're providing that sort of funding to those who have established and have proven their need based off of income.
Okay.
And so that would take place if they qualify for that. Then we are able to provide that credit based off of that program that is funded by non-rate revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and if they do not qualify, then of course their steps are to bring their appeal to the board, which is where we are here today.
Okay. Did you have a question? It seems like you have a question.
I do, and it's a bigger question than just this issue, with apologies to you, Mr. Redding. We get a number of these appeals, and they're quite troubling because people don't know that this has happened until after the fact. When you mentioned non-rate revenue just now, you sparked a thought in my mind, and it's a policy question. It's a big one. Maybe we should be using some of our non-rate revenue as a kind of a discretionary fund for situations like this. Under Prop 218, we're not allowed to take ratepayer money and give it to Mr. Redding. We're just not allowed to do that. But I really look for some way that we can rectify these situations, as happened in 2020, apparently. If we could establish some policy for using non-rate revenue to give customers credits when they have, through no known fault of their own, used more water than usual, I would really appreciate the ability to do that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Well, let's see. It's not really an agenda item, so I don't know how much we can discuss this. But you know, I get what you're saying, and I am a little troubled about this first level of qualification in order to address a credit, and the thought of maybe pursuing what Director McKenna is describing at a future meeting might be helpful.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, you may.
We are coming up on our new budget year, where we're going to be kicking off our series of meetings internally, and then also with the Finance Committee, and that is an item that we can bring up for discussion at one of those Budget Finance Committee meetings that will be coming up in the next couple months, and discuss the creation of a potential program to be able to bring to the board for inclusion in the upcoming budget.
Yeah, so I mean, hypothetically, if this board did decide to grant the appeal, it would mean providing a credit up to the amount that was talked about in the staff report, And that money would have to come from somewhere, but we also already have been, we already have been told that it can't come from ratepayer money, so where would it come from?
It would need to come from non-rate revenue.
Yeah. Okay, so we,
Could be like late fees.
Yes,
Right.
it can be late fees, it can be lease revenue and things of that nature.
but essentially we would already, and it sounds like we've already done that before,
Yes.
at least in 2020, and perhaps with other customers too. Okay. Um,
May I ask? If,
yes, you may.
Can we make a motion today to divert some of that non-ratepayer revenue to this issue and the next one? Or could we adjourn these two complaint repeals until the board has had a time? I don't really want to wait for a budget process to be finished,
Yeah.
which will take till June, but we could, on the next meeting, we could have an agenda item to establish a fund like that. We could do it in 2 weeks.
It is
And
po-
we could defer this action on this until it's done.
I don't know, what's the board's pleasure? I mean,
Well, I have a problem with the removal of the meter in the midst of this whole thing. So I'm inclined to grant the ratepayers' request for the full amount and direct staff to find the money, whatever that means, and be done with this one. I apologize for the problem, but I don't think that it's the issue I have is that if the meter was pulled and there's a chain of custody issue there with the data as well as the physical meter. And we're told that there was no issue with the meter, but it was pulled. And that's almost as close to, that in my view, fuzzies it up. Because the ratepayer didn't ask for that. If this was a murder case, he would go free.
okay. Yeah, that's a little dramatic. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. What additional thoughts do you have?
Well, so your irrigation valves were not leaking.
No,
Were you at the property in October?
no. We were
So who,
not there from July 4th to December about 15th.
but you had someone checking on the property that would have alerted you if there
Yes.
was leaking?
Gardeners and pool service.
Okay, that's my only question.
My issue is the 90 to 100,000 gallon spike and the dollar amount. I just don't feel it's on our end.
Yeah, I mean, irrigation valves can be leaking underground and could be leaking for a really long time.
True, but the following month it went down severely.
Mm.
You know, it's 103,224 gallons in November. In December, it's 3,740 gallons. So if it was an underground leak, I would assume, keep occurring.
Yeah, I mean, without you being at the house, I mean, it's hard to know what exactly was going on.
I don't know, I
We
guess,
had a previous credit in 2020. So I'm not sure what percentage the water meter is accurate. That's why I'm here.
yeah, thank you. I guess I'll look for some sort of motion from somebody.
Director Grasha made a motion, right?
Well, you said, well, I didn't realize that was actually a motion. I thought it was just sort of a,
I think it was kind of a motion.
would you like to make a
I was
motion,
working
Director
toward a
Grasha?
motion to, what are we doing? It's the staff recommendation, I guess, is to deny, right?
That's correct.
But I would move that we credit the account of, and the amount of $312.32. Is that the amount?
I don't.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, there it is, yes.
And Wish you better luck.
I have a first from Director Grasha. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Right. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
No.
and President Ortega.
No.
We toss a coin now.
That's
Well,
a tie.
you sort of made a motion at
Yep,
one point.
So does that motion fail on a 2-2 or what?
Yes, that's not a majority.
Not a majority. Well, then I would like to make a motion that we grant the customer appeal that we use funds from our non-rate revenue in this instance, pending a change of policy later that we will consider later.
It would have come from, anyways, it would have come from non-rate revenue anyways.
Can I ask for a clarification on that? Or how, should I wait for a second first?
I move that we credit the customer $312 and that those funds come from non-rate revenue. They don't normally. They wouldn't normally. I mean,
Actually, I believe that they would have to.
Yes, they would have to come from non-rate revenue because
then
otherwise you're
Assistant
subsidizing.
General Manager Tate's point that we'd be transferring that to all our other customers would not be entirely correct, would it?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I'm just trying to get clarity here.
Yeah, I understand that. I appreciate that. Do I have a second?
What was it again?
It's basically the same thing, but from non-rate revenue.
Okay. I will second that.
All right, I have a first from Director McKenna and a second from Director Grasha. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
No.
and President Ortega.
No.
I vote again.
Thank you. Can we back up a little bit?
Of course.
You started to form what could have been early on in this conversation, what I felt might have been a motion for delaying these appeals until we as a board have come up with something that was more of a policy, but not waiting for the June budget process.
Let me try that then.
Okay. Why don't you try that?
I will move to adjourn this appeal for 4 weeks. And that would give us time to look at this policy question at the next meeting. I move that.
All right. I have a first from Director McKenna. Do I have a second? I'll second that. All right. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I guess you'll be hearing from us a little later, but appreciate you showing up today.
Will there be another meeting, you mean, or?
We as a board will be meeting, not specifically about your appeal, but we will be talking about the policy that is involved in this appeal, and then we will revisit the appeal.
So you'll be in touch with me, or?
I presume that staff will be in touch with
Yep.
you when that is scheduled, yes.
Okay,
So no
thank you.
action at this point. Thank you for your time. All right, so we can move to action 8B, request board action on customer appeal. Brad Furr. I believe Mr. Furr is online with us. And given the conversation we've just had, this may change, may give us some direction on how we want to move forward with this particular action item. I guess I'll look to Mr. Riddell, General Counsel, on what he thinks on this. He's like, what?
Well, the board has a lot of latitude here. It seems to me that since Mr. Furr is here, that he should be given an opportunity to address the board in case that's helpful.
All right, then we will proceed. That's another staff report then from General Manager Tate. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Today, I have an action item for a customer appeal for Brad Fear. In 2019, the Board of Directors adopted the Resolution 1224, as mentioned in the previous staff report. I won't reread that whole section. The appellant, Mr. Fear, is requesting a credit and discount to his November, or credit or discount to his November 2024 bill. See attachment 1. The 2024 bill showed the meter registered 89 units of consumption at the property. The 3-year average November consumption for the property is 16 units. The account owner changed at the beginning of 2023, though the usage was consistent through the different owners. Using the 3-year average consumption of 16 units will result in a maximum credit for 73 units, totaling $178.12. Mr. Fear is requesting relief due to vandalism. No police report was filed. Excuse me. The following is a staff summary of events regarding the November 2024 bill for his property. On November 19th, the meter read was collected. On November 20th, the reread was collected, no motion on the meter, and it showed average consumption. On December 22nd, 2024, the customer filed a dispute. On December 26th, 2024, the dispute was denied. A letter and email were sent to the customer. On January 9th, 2025, an appeal was received. The customer has not paid the November bill in dispute and the December bill that is not in dispute, resulting in 2 late fees that have been waived due to the dispute process. If the board decides to deny the appeal, there will be no fiscal impact. If the board decides to grant the appeal, the agency may credit the account up to $178.12. Finance Director Science has reviewed this report. Customer consumption is based on water that is passed through the meter without regard for how the water is used. And I was going to read the same thing about the Constitution. I'll skip that part.
I think that's wise.
Based on the meter read and the reread at the property, staff recommends that the Board of Directors deny the appeal for Mr. Fear. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Director McKenna?
Not at the moment.
All right, not at the moment. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions.
Thank you. I have a few questions. If we could go back to the summary of the timeline again, please. So we have a meter read on the 19th of November. Then we have a reread on the 20th of November. Unlike the previous applicant's previous appeal, we don't have any data related to daily usage with this particular meter. Is that correct?
No, not this meter.
Okay. All right. That was really my main question. So, Mr. Ferb, would you like to address the board on the matter?
Sure. First, I think it's good that you're having a discussion about these in general, because it does seem like it's an odd process to, the only way to appeal is if you have a hardship case, and there is no other appeal, and you get a letter back from the agency stating that because it's not a hardship case, it's just denied. So I hope you will look into that policy and create some policy, whereas something like this, which was vandalism to a pipe, the main water pipe on our property, and we had, an excess of water that ran off and flooded part of our property. The fire department was called. I have a voicemail that I provided to the agency from the Palm Springs Fire Department when they had to come to the property in the middle of the night and shut off the water because a Good Samaritan reported seeing water flowing off our property and called the fire department. So they shut the water off at the street. It was on a weekend, so we didn't catch it until Monday, at which time we had the pipe repaired and then the water turned back on. But I do feel this is a legitimate appeal based on the fact that this was vandalism to our property. And I would ask that you grant the appeal.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have questions?
This one seems easier,
Okay. All right.
so I have no questions.
Oh, no
Thank you.
questions. All right. Director McKenna?
I want to acknowledge your point about that the assistance that's available is only for low-income customers. That's part of the reason I want to address this issue in a policy manner later on. But could you give me a little better idea what sort of vandalism actually occurred? What happened exactly?
So we had been working on the irrigation system on our property, and that left an area exposed with the water pipe where they had done some repairs to it. But when we actually looked at the pipe itself, you could see that someone had gotten in there, and we think that maybe a homeless person was trying to get water and got in and actually broke the pipe. It was not a clean break. It was like it was somebody taking a shovel, because that's thick PVC pipe. We examined it, and it was not a break in the pipe. It was physically damage to the pipe, and it was broken off in the ground.
Anything else?
Yeah, I see this as a little different from the previous case because I'm not sure I would accept responsibility for vandalism by, persons unknown and give our agency funds to recompense that. That seems more like an insurance issue, and I know it's too small for an insurance claim, but this strikes me as different from the previous case. That's all I'll say at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions.
All right, I do have some questions. I think in the staff report, Mr. Tate, and actually, I'll just refer to the staff report and ask the applicant to, or the appellant to clarify. There was mention of transfer of the property. So I assume that you're the new owner of the property that's being referenced. Is that correct?
No, we are a tenant. This is
Okay.
a rental, business rental property.
Okay,
And so we are renting this property. The water bill has remained in the name of the homeowner, and we pay that bill every month.
the homeowner. Okay, so this
I'm
is,
sorry, it's actually, it looks like a home. It's a 1940s bungalow home, as you can see from the ceiling. But it is actually a commercial business, 201 East Ramon. So
Okay.
this is
okay,
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Nobody's here on the weekends.
okay. So you're not actually the customer of record, is that correct? I mean, your business is not actually the customer of record, it's still the property owner. That's what I thought I heard, but I could be wrong.
I know her name is on the bill. I think, but I know we had to fill out paperwork for that. So I believe we're the responsible party on that bill.
Can we, I'm going to ask the finance director to clarify that.
So the water bill always remains in the name of the property owner according to our policies. And we, upon the direction of the property owner, we will add a tenant to the bill and send the bills to them directly. But DWA always maintains that the owner is ultimately responsible for the bill, so that in the case of a tenant is no longer there, the property owner is held responsible for any outstanding amounts. And also we hold that it is the agreement between the property owner and the tenant as far as who pays the bill, but as far as we're concerned, it's a property owner.
Okay. I find that a little confusing, not because I didn't understand what you said, but in terms of sort of like the chain of responsibility. So in this case, the business owner who's the tenant could stop paying the bill for whatever reason, and that then becomes the responsibility of the property owner who's renting or leasing the space to that business. And and yet the appeal is being made by the tenant who's not really ultimately responsible.
That is correct from DWA's perspective, that the tenant is not ultimately responsible. However, we leave it up to in between the landlord and the tenant who is responsible.
Okay. And other question I have is it typical for the fire department to become involved in something like this? That seems unusual to me.
I would say that's unusual.
I mean, I understand. Just a moment. I understand that it was from what you said, Mr. Furr, that it was a passerby or somebody who notified the fire department who may or may not know, oh, I should have called the water agency versus the fire department. But then wouldn't the fire department contact us? Why would a fire department be interested? I mean, if it were a hydrant, I could sort of understand that. But an irrigation pipe seems odd to me. Do we have a policy with the fire department if they get calls like that to refer them? I mean, we have emergency people. Any other questions from members of the board? Yes?
No questions?
Okay. None? No? All right. So is there a motion out there that we might be able to move forward with?
I'm going to make a motion to deny the claim because I don't think we're not responsible for vandalism.
Okay. I have a first from Secretary.
I will second that.
Okay. I have a first from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer and a second from Director McKenna. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I assume we're going to continue with the action items and then we'll move to that
Correct.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So action 8C, request board authorization for general manager to execute temporary construction easement with the city of Palm Springs. Mr. Mulhook, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Director Ortega, members of the board. I'm here this morning to request board authorization for the general manager to execute temporary construction easement with the city of Palm Springs. The city of Palm Springs is seeking to purchase a temporary construction easement over a portion of Desert Water Agency's property for the construction of its Ramon Road widening project. To facilitate the bridge expansion, part of that widening project, the city would like to acquire a 5-year temporary construction easement of approximately 1,293 square feet over a portion of the agency's APN 677-420-057 for the sum of $3,900. The proposed easement term is December 31st of 24 to December 31st of 29. That easement is over a small portion of our property, which is just outside of one of our well sites. That's not really a usable area. They will be utilizing that for equipment to access some of the work that they're doing within the right-of-way. Prior action, a temporary construction easement for the same location was granted to the city of Palm Springs in August of 2019, and that has since expired. So this easement would essentially be renewing that, for lack of a better term. Fiscal impact. The agency would receive payment in the amount of $3,900 from the city of Palm Springs. Finance Director Sands has reviewed this report. Legal counsel has reviewed the temporary construction easement agreement and had no additional comments or concerns. And with that, staff recommends the board authorize the general manager to execute the temporary construction easement agreement and the temporary construction easement. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha,
I have no questions, thank you.
right? Director McKenna,
I have none, thanks.
all right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
I just have one question. The prior easement, I'm trying to remember, was it for the same widening project or was it for CV Link?
It was for the same widening project.
Same way, okay, just clarifying, okay.
They hadn't started yet.
They're a little behind schedule.
Started?
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't really seen anything widening going on over there. Okay, that's it.
What was the amount again?
$3,900.
Which is non-rate revenue, correct? All right, never mind. I have no other questions. I'll look for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
So move.
So is that a second from you, sir? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. First from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, second from Director Grasha. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Request, this 8D is a request for addition of the Municipal Water Leaders Workshop to other organized activities and services rendered as a director list. Ms. York. Good morning.
Morning, President Ortega, members of the board. So what you have before you is a request to participate in the Municipal Water Leaders Workshop and other activities, and adding that to the director's list, as I understand it. At the January 29th executive meeting, this was discussed. The agenda was reviewed, which is also part of the attachment for this item, and it was then requested that this be placed on today's agenda for consideration for board attendance. Additionally, at the executive committee, there was discussion about this being only for about 30 individuals or so within the city of, it'll be held here within the city of Palm Springs. We did communicate with Chris Pauley from Water Strategies, who is the organization that is putting this on. And if you're familiar, Water Strategies is part of, or is our federal advocacy team. And Mr. Pauley did mention he didn't seem a need to put any restraint on any numbers of attendees from DWA. I know we had discussed if there's only 30 and there's a good amount of DWA representation, we'd make up that bulk of 30, but he welcomed as many individuals as, of course, it's a conference, it's an educational piece, and wouldn't want to deter anyone from attending. With that, I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
This is limited to March 11th through the 13th. Is this another group that meets on other?
So this is an inaugural conference.
Oh,
or
okay.
Workshop, actually. They also put on the Irrigation Water Leaders Workshop that we previously attend, and Water Strategies is also responsible for the NWRA, National Water Resources Association Conference as well.
All right, I look forward to it. I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Director McKenna, do you have any comments or questions?
None for me, no.
Okay. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
None for me.
Okay. I would just to add on to what Director York was saying is that we have on our list the irrigation leader workshop, and this is sort of indirectly related to our involvement with NWRA. So when this item came up a couple of weeks ago, while Secretary Treasurer Bloomer and I were in Chandler at the irrigation leaders workshop, I did ask for this to be at least considered for similar reasons, and I found that the workshop in Chandler was quite informative, and I see also that DWA as an agency board participation aside, has some role in the agenda. And so I thought it was important to at least have that discussion today. So with that, I will look for a motion.
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
So I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled programming. We will, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we still have a quorum up here, so I guess we're okay. Item 6, which was moved, is now is a presentation on the 2024 Capital Improvement Projects Review from our General Manager.
Thank you, President Ortega. So this presentation on capital improvement projects, we do this annually, and this is a review of the 2024 projects that occurred. This is for information for the board to give you some insight into how busy the agency staff was for 2024 regarding projects. And so the first item here is a pipeline project. It's our Avenida Caballeros project. As you recall, that was the 30-inch water main between Ramon Road and Tahquitz Canyon. That's around just under 2,500 lineal feet. Cost just over $2 million. Again, that main had several leaks, and it was completed in August of 2024. Next item is our 2021-2022 work order pipeline replacement project, which occurred back in February through August of 2024. That was 8-inch, 12-inch, and just a small amount of 6-inch. It was just 15,800 lineal feet of 8-inch and just over 600 lineal feet of the 12-inch over several locations within the city. A cost of just over $4.7 million. Again, that's to replace that old infrastructure. And again, that was through February through August. That was performed by Borden. Next, we have a well site upgrade. This is our well site 26. As you can see that site, you see some gravel that was placed around it that originally was all turf that had irrigation that sprayed all over the exterior of that site. A lot of the infrastructure on the outside was starting to see some corrosion based on the irrigation. What we decided to do was replace the turf. We put in the gravel, and then we painted all of the, and we did some pipe replacement, and then we did some painting there for $50,000. I think it looks great. That is one of our older well sites too. And then next we have our chlorine injection. We have injections stations located throughout the city. Here, well 21, which is, again, is an older site on the north end for $32,000. You can see there's some photos there of and this is installed by DWA crews. They do all the work. And that was late December 2023 through February of 2024. Again, chlorine allows us to inject liquid chlorine into the system for disinfection purposes. So reservoir upgrades. we have a tidal wave mixer. This is a mixer that we've placed inside of the Palisades Reservoir. That reservoir was installed for the Palisades development. There are not a lot of homes on that system. And what we found was the water was getting fairly stagnant, and we wanted to improve the water quality. Therefore, we placed this tidal wave mixer in there for $25,000. That was done in December of 2024. So we're hoping to see much better water quality from that reservoir. Earthquake valve systems. We did a couple different projects. Tockwitz Reservoir. There's the two reservoirs up in Tockwitz Canyon for $90,000. Both of those reservoirs now have the new type of actuators. They replaced the old system, which was compressed air, and there was a little ball that sat on a pedestal, and when the ground shook, this little ball fell off and the air was released. At the time, it was really high-tech technology. They have new equipment now, and that was completed in November 2024. We then, the 12 million gallon reservoir, we installed a new actuator for that one for $45,000. Emergency power, this is a new portable generator for $246,000. It's a backup generator, which will allow us to move throughout our system to different booster sites. And we received that in December of 2024. Recycled water plant upgrades that occurred last year. So for $10,000, we installed some water nozzles. Now, this may not seem like a very important project. However, what this allows our staff to do is when they clean that reservoir, they used to manually go down into the reservoir. They had hoses, they dragged the hoses all around. This now allows them to stay up on the catwalk. They can shoot the water at strategic locations, pushing the settlement into locations. And so for $10,000, that's, I think our guys are very happy to have this nozzle system. Storm repairs that occurred. This was Tropical Storm Hillary. For $304,000, we had the work completed at our Mission Creek recharge basin. That occurred between April and May of 2024. I think it came out beautiful. They did a great job getting that debris basin cleaned out and repaired, the fence. And more importantly, the work was completed, then allowed us to deliver, I think, over 12,000 acre-feet of water to that basin. IT upgrades. IT was very busy. This past year, we did some server room upgrades for $86,000. It replaced some old switch gear, wireless access devices, and that was in December and just completed here in January. We had our mobile device upgraded protection software that was installed on all of our mobile devices for just over $29,000. Again, that protects our resources on our laptops, our tablets, and our cell phones. That was completed in July of 2024. Printers and copiers. 6. new Xerox printer and copiers were replaced throughout the operations center for $71,000. The other devices were reached their age, and so at this time we wanted to get all new copiers and printers. They work great. I just used one this morning, so it's stapled and everything. So it's pretty excited. The Canon plotter, this is for the engineering department for $18,000. This replaced a very old plotter. This allows us to plot our plans, do scanning and so forth. Again, it replaced a very old plotter, and we got that back in July. Postage machines. So we got a new postage machine, inserters, and other mail equipment here for $122,000. That's quite a bit of money, but again, it replaced some old equipment that reached its life, and that was in October 2024. HR and payroll. So this is the Tyler system. So we went live in January of 2025. This is the human resources in the Tyler payroll modules. Very $1.29 million, but this is great for our agency. We now can do our payroll without the AS400, which was that old 1980s. I think it was a 1980s system. We are now in the 2000s, which is great. And I believe the board is now using Tyler to do their timesheets. I believe so. So staff is very excited to have that in place. Agency vehicles. We have a new compressor for $35,000. This is a used construction for multi-purpose use. We have a new unit, Unit 64, which is our Ford crew cab for $45,000. And then the next 3 units, so Unit 13, Unit 60, and Unit 49, these are all dump trucks. These were all replacements of diesel vehicles. If you recall, CARB required us to get rid of several of our diesel vehicles. So this was the first installment of that process. All of these are just gas vehicles. They are not diesels, which CARB, as I said, required us to complete this. And I believe we still have 8 more diesel vehicles that we are required to get rid of over the next couple of years. And then the operations center, we installed the parking structure, shade structure outside that provides a dual purpose for visitors and for staff who park out there. Provides shade, and we installed the lights and the bollards, and that was completed in June of 2024 for $140,000. And with that, as you can see, very busy, a lot of work that occurred, and that concludes my presentation. So be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions or comments about the report?
I feel like we should have a budget review at the same time we have this, so that all these projects are at top of mind while we're going over the budget. So I would ask, how are we in term, the projects here were, a part of the budget. Is everything seemingly going well in
Yes.
terms of funding all these projects and the ones that are upcoming?
Yes, as far as the funding for the projects, a majority of them were under budget. Some were, a couple were just slightly over, but within our normal tolerances. Otherwise, we would come for a budget augmentation. So yes, funding is going well. And just to foreshadow, what's coming up is we are in the beginning stages, as I said earlier, of our budget process, where we take a very in-depth review of all of our open projects. We look at all of the statuses of them. Are they on target? Do they need an augmentation? Do we, and so that is the foundation for how we move forward for next year. So we're in the process of that, the beginning stages of that budget review process, of which we will be taking to the Finance Committee as well in the coming months.
So the pipeline projects that we were doing, that was something they turned up the volume on a little bit a couple of years ago. I know that accommodations were made for that.
Yeah, I think it's been now maybe 7 years of we went from $1 million a year to I think 3, and now we're at 4 million per project, 4 or 5 million per project. So we have a 15-year plan to try to knock out a specific amount of mains that were reach their life.
I'm thrilled that we're moving along with that. I just wanted to be reassured that we're not overdoing it, based on the size of the agency and the income and everything. I'm glad to hear that we'll be able to continue that. Thank you.
Director McKenna?
Just appreciate all the work that went into these projects, and keep it up.
Thank you. Secretary of Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Did have a couple of things that came to mind. Can we scroll back to the Tyler portion? So this portion of the Tyler system, this is essentially internal, right? This is not customer facing at all. This is just all internal.
That is correct. The Tyler and payroll and human resources, that is an internal focus. But I would like to make a small clarification to what is on the slide. It says the price is at $1.3 million for the Tyler and HR modules. That is not correct. We have the larger Tyler project, of which we have already implemented our financials, it took us a long time to complete along with consultants. So that is an all-inclusive to date of our entire Tyler implementation project of 1.3 million, of which we have, so we've completed financials, which we've been using since January of 2025. So we've hit the year mark in our new financial system environment. We now have gone live with Tyler Payroll and Human Resources modules, and we will be going live with our utility billing module on March 10th, and that is internal and external facing customer portal, new payment system platforms, new capabilities up at the front counter for us to be able to assist customers as well with that new utility billing system and our payment capabilities. Which also spurred the remodel as well, because we had to be able to install the hardware necessary. And so that is inclusive of all those activities to date, of which we still have one more phase to go, which is our enterprise asset management. So like our inventory and other items extends into like work orders for things in the field. So.
Do we have a sort of anticipated final number with these two modules that are still outstanding?
I believe our total budget is right around 3 million is what I believe the total budget is. And from where we're tracking, it's looking like we're going to come in well under.
Yeah, it would seem so, but again, I don't know what those other modules actually entail in terms
Yeah.
of cost and
The
staff
next
time,
one's
et
a
cetera.
heavy lift, but I don't think it's going to take $1.5 million.
Okay. And so the next module, which I think, I can't remember what how you referred to it.
Enterprise asset management.
No, but prior to that.
The utility billing.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that has an internal component and an external component, meaning out facing towards our customers
Correct.
and the public. And you mentioned a pretty aggressive timeline, it sounds like, in terms of where we are today and where we're going to be in a month from now.
Yes.
So what's sort of what programs or what are we anticipating in terms of how that might impact members of the public?
So, how it will impact members of the public, they will have a new MyDWA portal, still branding it MyDWA, but it will be a new platform that they're routed to be able to access their bills. So, they will be able to access all of their consumption history, their billing history. Their billing history is being imported for the last 5 years, so they'll have 5 years of historical data at their fingertips. They will also, once we get the AMI completed, we will have another small integration to where they will be able to see their kind of real-time data. So that's going to be the customer portal to be able to see that, as well as they will be able to make credit card payments. They'll online and over the phone. We have those capabilities kind of now, but we send them through a different third-party system. So Paymentus. So we're consolidating our payment platforms all into one for ease of management and consistency, and as well as native integration into the system itself. So we're not trying to plug a different component in for that payment capabilities. Our customers will still be able to make auto pay payments, and their auto pay, if they're currently signed up, they'll be able to see it will seamlessly transfer over for them with no action required on their end. But an expanded capability is currently they can only make an auto pay payment with a checking account or an ACH transfer, in other words, but they'll have the opportunity to sign up for if they would like to use a credit card instead. So that's an additional capability that they would have as well. So those are the kind of the customer facing things. A lot of the same functionalities are there, but we have an opportunity to grow and to provide a little bit more service and visibility with our other AMI program as well. Customers will still receive e-bills if they're currently signed up for e-billing. So all of those things remain the same. And we have inserts going into customer bills of how to sign up for the new portal. Starting in February 1, we started putting an insert of like, hey, more to come. We're transitioning a new billing system, and you can sign up after March 10th. And we'll have a new bill insert of how to like read your bill and everything.
How different will it look to the average customer?
It's going to look drastically different as far as the platform itself, but it is pretty intuitive. We also have the bill will look different as well, and we are drafting up, how-tos and FAQs so that we can have that online, because it is going to look a little bit different. People are going to have questions, and we want to make sure that they understand that, like, hey, the functionality is still here. You used to go here for it. Now you're going to, this is where you go. And of course, if you have any issues, please give us a call.
Do you feel that that we're staffed up enough to be able to? I mean, I would anticipate that there's going to be a large number of questions, at least at the very beginning, and again, that's in part prompted the change to the lobby, and I'm assuming, of course, that our staff would be properly trained at that point to address a lot of those questions that are going to be.
Yes, I do believe that we have the staff to be able to handle it. Will it be, kind of all hands on deck for a little bit once we get through the first push? Absolutely. We're also drafting up internal, frequently asked questions for our staff members so that they too know how to answer those questions, as well as we have several of them that have been actually in all of the training sessions with Tyler, and a part of the implementation, so that they know how to work the program as well. Granted, not everybody is in that, and that's why it's going to take, we'll be setting up some meetings internally as well to make sure everybody is fully versed and aware of all the changes that have taken place so that they can assist our customers.
And do we have some sort of additional support from Tyler during this period?
Yes, we do. So we will have Tyler representatives here on site when we go live for kind of that hand holding. This is how, if you run into any issues, when you have a new implementation, of course, you can prepare as much as you can for the known issues, but then there's also those ones that you didn't really, that came up that you didn't prepare for. So we will have staff here on site, I believe 1 to 2 Tyler individuals when we make that transition to assist us not only with operating within the environment, but handle any issues that may arise as we go live.
Okay, thank you. And then can we move to the vehicle replacement? Yes, the one more down. I thought I heard you say, General Manager Johnson, that we're replacing diesel vehicles with gas vehicles. Do you mean natural gas or do you mean gasoline?
Gasoline.
Okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to replace them with regular unleaded gas vehicles
For a period of time.
for a period of time, which we met that.
Okay.
The reg also requires, starting, I believe, this year, that half of the vehicles that you purchase must be electric vehicles.
Zero
starting this year.
emissions. Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Which we have a plan for
Right.
that too.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So what happens to these diesel vehicles? Where do they go?
Probably Arizona. Or you're going to see them.
It's going to be a glut on the market on the other side of the border.
Yeah, Nevada,
Okay.
all over the country.
All right. Okay, I don't have any other questions then about the presentation. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
All right, and we can move to item 9, which is the Secretary Treasurer's Report for December 2024. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
Okay. In our operating fund, we received $4,267,000 in water sales revenue receipts and $127,265 in recycled water sales revenue receipts, $14,560 in construction deposits, and we paid $1.9 million in accounts payable. And year to date, water sales are 7% over budget. Total revenues are 10% over budget, and total expenses are 13% under budget. We currently have 23,648 active potable water accounts as of December 2024, and that's compared to it's the same number in November 2024. 23,648. In the operating fund, account disconnections for non-payment, there was 47 water accounts turned off for non-payment in December 2024, and over the past 12 months, an average of 28 accounts per month turned off for non-payment, which is equivalent to 1.4% of our customers. In the general fund, we received $5.5 million in property taxes, $31,903 in replenishment assessments, and that was all from private pumpers. $60,689 in power sales revenue from Southern California Edison for the Whitewater Hydro. And we paid in the general fund $1.4 million in state water project charges. And in the wastewater fund, we received $118,256 in wastewater revenue receipts. We paid $89,310 in accounts payable. There were 2,241 active sewer accounts billed in December, and that was compared to 2,245 active sewer accounts billed in November. So a decrease of 4 active accounts billed. And that's it.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McKenna.
It's normally possible to read the payments made on these accounts, checks over $10,000. I don't see that this.
Yes,
in
and
this report.
we have that prepared. I'm not entirely sure why it wasn't in the packet. So that is an error on our part that it didn't make it in.
Okay, you send us that?
Yes.
Or put it in the record somehow?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Do you have questions for yourself?
I don't.
Okay. I do have questions about the shutoffs. Can we go back to what you read?
Sure. Where is that? Oh, 47 water accounts turned off for non-payment, and the average is 28.
Okay, I think there was a reference to a percentage, though, that seemed
1.4%
awfully,
of the customers.
seems awfully high if we have 24,000 accounts.
Well, 1% would be like 240.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's 28 counts per month.
Oh, 28 accounts per month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was my question.
Yeah,
Just-
because it is the 28, it's an average is 28 accounts per month, which is it says it's 1.4%, and I'm curious if that might be a typo.
Yeah, on an annual basis, it might be close. Yeah, yeah.
Let me see.
Okay,
Just give me 1 second here.
all right.
But they do get turned on again often.
Yes,
Yeah.
they
You know,
do.
yeah.
They do not remain off.
It
That
just
is
seemed like,
correct.
it seemed like a high number of people not having water service. And I guess that's the point, that a lot of them do get turned back on. And those disconnect, these are accounts that were turned off by us, not at the customer's request, but because of non-payment.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
correct. These are turnoffs for disconnections for non-payment of service. So this is going to be a combination of our commercial and residential, and they're both handled differently. Commercial, after they are 30 days past due, they receive a disconnect notice if they have not made that payment. And so they get shut off essentially at 60 days. And our residential service, they get a disconnect notice after 30 days, and then it's a shut off at 90 days. So it's a difference between a 2-month time frame and a 3-month time frame between the two classes of customers.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. We can move to item 10, which is our general manager's report.
All right, thank you, President Ortega. First item, Finance Director Sines and I have been invited back to Mission Springs Water District. That will be on March 13th. Actually, I think it's February 13th, not March. That's a typo. And this will be the second presentation that we will provide for the Mission Springs Board. If you recall, back in February of last year, we had a presentation. There were some questions that their board still had, and they have now invited us back to provide a second presentation, and we'll be addressing those questions that their board had. Next item is on January 28th, DWR announced that the State Water Project allocation will be 20%, and that went from 15 to 20%. For DWA, that equates to 11,150 acre-feet of water. For the Sites Reservoir Project, they announced that they were awarded an additional $129 million in federal funding, and that now increases their total funding to $649.15 million in federal funding. So it's great news to hear that. This next item here, we wanted to provide the board some insight. There was a lot of discussion in the news regarding the pause in federal funding, and I know that it's been rescinded, However, we took a look that and there is still a presidential review through executive orders for funding, and for our projects that would affect about 2.3 million in federal grants and about just under $1 million in potential FEMA assistance. So just wanted to make the board aware of the amount of money that was out there for DWA that potentially could be impacted. Our offices will be closed on February 17th for President's Day. So happy President's Day on that. Our system leaks, 11 leaks over a couple 2-week period. That's great news. There are a couple of streets that are part of, Lindsay is part of a project that has been awarded already, and I believe that's Bernie Drive. That is anticipated to be part of the summer 2025 replacement project. As far as labor hours, those 11 leaks totaled 153 labor hours. Activities, some highlights. On January 23rd, we were at the Palm Springs City Council meeting. So Director Lort presented to the City Council regarding emergency and fire preparedness and so forth, along with the City Fire Department Chief. He had a presentation. And on the 29th, had an executive committee meeting. Also had a strategic planning group meeting on the 29th. And then on the 3rd, went out to Riverside. And we had our coordination meeting with CBWD and met on water deliveries. And with that, concludes my report. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
We have a claim in for FEMA funding, right?
That's correct.
That goes back a year or so, and we have not received payment for?
That was the 2019 February 14th flood that occurred at our Falls Creek facilities. We are still working through that process.
5 years that the Biden administration held that up.
It's just it's a process to go through the FEMA. There was some engineering that they required, some environmental studies that were required, and so forth. And we're getting close.
Luckily, one of our neighbors is responsible for FEMA now in California. The president and the governor today will be meeting at 3 o'clock to discuss trying to hustle up the payments that go back years. And yes, there was a pause in funding so that these conversations could take place. So it'll be interesting to see the difference in the administrations and how one is maligned and the other is not, and how that plays out going forward. And I understand they turned the valve, the Army, and water is now flooding the Central Valley. And I think we have to learn to new terminology. It's no longer a canal, it's a half pipe. So we're going to be having some fun over the next few years, I guess. Thanks.
Director McKenna?
I have a quick question on fire hydrants. It's become an issue in Los Angeles that a number of the districts that were badly damaged were served with 2.5-inch fire hydrants, just a single outlet. I have one of those across the street from my house. I was wondering, what is our split in terms of the regular 4-inch hydrant versus these 2.5s that really don't do much?
Well, we have two different styles of hydrants. There's a residential hydrant, and then there's a commercial hydrant. And the residential has I think a 1.5 inch and a 2.5 inch outlet, and then the commercial has it has those plus a 4-inch, and so your typical residential hydrant will have that 2.5 inch connector for fire departments on them.
Single connector?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. It's for a single fire hydrant, fire department hose connection.
Okay. Not entirely thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, that's your standard. That's a standard hydrant configuration. Is that correct? Is there? I'll have to look. We have a hydrant out on the lobby out there on display, and what we did with
That's a 4-inch.
what we did with the that hydrant is we actually cut windows in it so that you can see how the internal process is, because there was a lot of questions about how do hydrants work, and we wanted to show the public how it's very simple plunger type apparatus on the inside there.
Is there any way you could produce a map of where those 2.5-inch hydrants are?
Yeah, we do. All of our hydrants are on our system maps. They're throughout the city. And I can get you a standard drawing of typical standard fire hydrant, residential and commercial.
If it is an issue now, it will be that in the interface areas, and I kind of live in one of those 2.5-inch fire hydrants just won't cut it. And so I think we should be thinking about, not saying we should spend money on it right now, but I think we should be thinking about what sort of provision we have in these more high fire risk areas. Is it enough? We should talk to the cities that fire departments about, is it enough? So that's my thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. May we scroll up to, I did have a couple of questions and I'm trying to remember what they were. But if we scroll up to the beginning of the general manager's report. So yes, with the state water project allocation, glad to hear that it's gone up. I was curious though that in light of the announcement also this past month about the lower than average snowpack, how that number this number of 20% might be impacted in the future based on that January report. Is this sort of a hard number now, and that's sort of anticipated because of the low snowpack, but it was still built into that allocation of 20%?
Typically, they're very conservative to move up, and so they typically do not move back.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of maybe only one time that where they were at an allocation and they brought it back. I do know that this 20% does not consider the current storms that are moving through. And the 15% did not consider the previous storm systems that moved through. So the 20% was a reaction to the storms in early January, and we may see some more movement on the upper higher, but we'll see where they go.
Yeah, it's like really what I was getting at is, would we anticipate it going down based on that? And so you're saying it's kind of baked in already.
Yeah, normally they're usually kind of a month behind on their allocation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
and then we can scroll further down to the report. Okay, we keep going. Um, here. So, and this is just sort of by way of observation as I drive to the meeting this morning, and I often take the same route and notice the same leaking pipe in the middle of El Camino or South Camino Real, which is in proximity to some of these and has probably appeared on a report before. But when we're looking at these future infrastructure projects, we don't really have dates in mind for any of these. This is just sort of like we've got these two projects, the one that was awarded and the one for the summer of 2025, and then because obviously these are not all in the same place. Do we have a sort of an anticipation of when some of these might
So
start
those
appearing?
are, the reason we changed it to future CIP is those are on our plan. They're on our radar. We have a group of pipes that we're going to work on. And the ones that are awarded or specified, we're actively working on those. Those are actively in design or under construction right now. So those other ones are at a low level, like 10, 20% design, not enough to say we're ready to, you know, they're in a group of pipes and streets that are going to be replaced. And one thing to add about that is we work with the city. So some of our we have a 5-year plan that we're actually going to be working on again we started in 2020. We're going to update it in 2025 of our group of pipelines that we do, or we're scheduling for replacement. We're working with the city. So the city has a paving plan that they put out. It's a 5-year paving plan, and we merge the two. So we, to the best of our ability, do not go in and install a pipe just after they paved a street. It may happen. We're not planning for that. We try to integrate their needs and our needs together. So some of the streets that may be a heavy leaker might be slightly lower on our agenda because they're a lot higher on the city's plan for street replacement.
Mhm.
So we're trying to merge them all together.
So these that are, say, future are anticipated within the next 5 years. Is that what I think I heard you say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think if you could scroll down a little bit further, please. I think that might have been it, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, we can keep going. Let's skip that map. Yeah, I think I've covered my questions, so thank you. We can move on to director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency, and we'll start with Director Gracia.
Thank you. On the 23rd of January, I attended the training, sexual harassment prevention training. I think that's what we called it. Yes. And there was one other. And then the 28th was the Coachella Valley Water District Board meeting, and also the 2025 Invasive Mussel Water Agency Summit, which was interesting, put on the Department of Water Resources, as I recall. And they're starting to take that situation as seriously as I've been taking it for some time. It's interesting to see the state kind of evolving on that and starting to understand the real threat now that it's too late, I guess. You know, it's in the system. The Delta is pretty well seeing signs of these mussels throughout the northern California area. And that's it, as I recall. Let me make sure. I think I just had the two. Well, the three. The one was non-compensable as it fell on the same day as CVWD meeting.
Okay.
That's it.
Director McKenna.
Okay, since the last meeting, I attended Mission Springs Water District that same day we did. I think the high points to their meeting, they had 2 change orders on the Nancy Wright Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, $1.4 million for the contractor, which they did not approve. That one may go to mediation. And $1.2 million for the engineering company, which they did approve. All in all, I think they have about a $9 million increase in their budget for the year because of these and other items. They mentioned that the burrowing owls were responsible for a significant... I'm sorry. They mentioned that burrowing owls were responsible for a significant delay on the wastewater treatment plant. In fact, I think it was one owl. It was reported to the board that that is a critically endangered species, but I happen to monitor that situation because I have them near my house, and it's now got candidate status for being listed as a threatened species. Not quite the same thing. They're proceeding with their solar power project. They have hired a consultant for environmental engineering on that. Their new headquarters building is in plan check corrections with the city, and they are in a slight disagreement with street improvements required on the north side of Park Lane, which is school district property. Director Duff mentioned that she had discovered that the water industry in California spends $1.8 billion annually on energy. It's an issue you've heard me talk about. Later, I've lost the date, but I went to the employee safety breakfast here, and that was just a great experience. You know, it's the esprit de corps, if you like, of our employees is just remarkable, and they are a class act. The whole agency is a class act, really, when it comes to performance and safety. So it's a great experience. I'm really, really glad that, you know, on occasions directors can go to that. I think I invited myself 2 years ago, and I missed it last year. I was away, but it's great to be there, and I congratulate all of the winners of the gift certificates.
Thank you.
So, then I also attended Desert Hot Springs City Council twice in the last 2 weeks. They met again the same day as us on, let's see, January 21st. Nothing particularly relevant to us on the 21st meeting. I was at their meeting yesterday. Complaints about traffic. I echo that. Apparently, the police department closed Palm Drive one morning for a fatal pedestrian accident, and all of the traffic coming out of Desert Hot Springs, and that is thousands of people now. About 10,000 commuters come out of that city every day. Went along Varner Drive, and one of the council members reported it took her an hour and 15 minutes to get through the backup. They also had a budget report. I took a close look at that. The audit report was unqualified, which is, of course, the good thing in this context. Their financial position of the city improved by $10 million over the year. This is in spite of the fact that they promoted and passed, voters passed, sales tax increase of 1% in the city, which will raise it out of $7 million. I don't really think they needed it, but that's what happened. And I will be back at Mission Springs again shortly. That's 3 meetings I took, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Director Bloomer. I mean, yes.
So I attended Irrigation Leader in Arizona January 21st through the 24th, and there were a lot of sessions on some innovative approaches to alternative energy that were on display there, and there's good sessions on some leadership items as well, and a pretty good crowd of people from all of kind of Western water. And then I was at the executive meeting on the 29th. And then went to CMUA Capital Day, February 2nd through the 4th, through last night. We got home last night. And that was a really good conference with energy utilities and water utilities. And so during the conference part of it, They had great panels, and we heard from 5 legislators, kind of like a round robin speaking engagement, kind of all with a theme of affordability of energy and water throughout the state, and kind of what the state legislator is kind of planning to do, and especially in the way of a low income infrastructure or low income rate bill that's probably going to come back out again. And then on that was on Monday, and then on Tuesday, yesterday, we had 5 different meetings, 3 with legislators and 2 with legislative staff, and then also with DWR. So very productive, and we made it out of the atmospheric river and made it home last night safely.
Very true.
That's it.
Thank you. So I also attended the irrigation leader conference or workshop in Chandler. And again, just I know the board has already approved this, but the municipal leader, which is the program that's next month in Palm Springs, has a similar format. There is an emphasis on leadership and leadership development. So there were panels on like what kind of training to programs maybe to put together for assistant general managers, for example. There was a panel, the very first panel, which was quite impressive, was a panel of 4 executive administrative assistants who support the general managers at some of these different agencies, and really how they view their role and how they feel they perform their role successfully in order to make everything work. And some of these are very small agencies, so that was a new thing. I thought that was quite innovative to include. Back to the energy component of that, we had a really interesting presentation about solar over canals in the greater Phoenix area, and there were a couple of projects that we talked about. Actually, one of them also included hydro within the canal. And I was very excited to be able to go on a tour of one of those projects until we actually did the tour. We never actually got out of the bus to look at the project, but saw it from about 200 feet away and from the window of a bus, because I was hoping to share that with you, Director McKenna, because I love stuff like that. But in any case, it did get me to thinking, although we don't have canals in our network, one of our neighbors does. And in the context of previous comments that Director McKenna has made about looking at the bigger picture of Coachella Valley-wide alternative energy sources, that might be something we might explore in the future with a partner like Coachella Valley Water District. But some of the designs that were presented to us, at least in the meeting room, seemed very innovative. And those of you who have been to the Phoenix area know that that residential and commercial area is riddled with canals throughout the metropolitan area. So having to design those in the context of also being in an urban environment was quite interesting. Also that was on the 22nd and the 23rd of January. On the 1st of February, I did my security training, the internet security training, and then, as Director Bloomer, our Secretary Treasurer Bloomer mentioned, from February 2nd to the 4th, we were in Sacramento for the CMUA Capital Day. Again, we had the benefit of at least 15-minute sort of presentations by a number of legislators from both sides of the aisle, and also both the Assembly and the State Senate, and then spent yesterday afternoon on what felt like a whirlwind tour of our legislators in the swing space at the near the state capitol, and also meeting with Senate staff on water and DWR. So that really enjoyed that, even though it was pouring rain and we had to maneuver around quite a bit with Ubers of crazy drivers. Outside of that, I have nothing else to add, so we can move on to our next item, which is 11, Director's Comments and Requests, and we'll start with Director Gracia.
On the subject of meeting with legislators, in the back of my mind, I've thought that we might consider adding the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce. They have a monthly lunch with this last month was Ochoa, Senator, and I've only been to one, but I thought it was they were very well produced. The one that I attended was our Assemblyman, what's his name?
Greg Wallace.
Wallace, yes. Was very good hour. I mean, it was very well worth going. I paid for the breakfast myself. But it's an opportunity to really get, you get to know a better way to get to know these people that represent us. And, the 15 minutes you get once a year maybe, you can maximize that quite quickly. Another thing that's starting to cross my mind is that, we have board subcommittees that we have conservation and public affairs, finance. Why don't we have an engineering subcommittee? And there's been issues that have been coming up lately. One of them, I think, is these problems with the meters that it seems to me that it might be time for the board to discuss the possibility of creating that opportunity for the board to have interaction on that subject with our engineering staff. And the girls are well represented here. And it seems to me that that side of our agency needs to be given more attention to. And so I will be advocating for the establishment of an engineering subcommittee of this board until we get one. So I don't know how often I'll bring it up, but I'd like to see it discussed sometime in the future. On the subject of our managers, I was very disturbed recently from watching one of the MSWD board meetings. It was really quite extraordinary to hear one of their board members suggest that the reason they have chromium-6 in their water is because the water that we deliver to them is infected with it. And I was offended by it. I haven't mentioned it until now. I'm hearing that we're going to have staff going over there. Maybe this is a time to ask them to clarify that comment that occurred sometime over the summer. And maybe their general manager can address that. It may have been just the director was misled or attempting to mislead. And quite frankly, something that I've avoided discussing because of all of the obvious problems between myself. And I think it was an attempt to make a dig at me, not necessarily the agency. But that occurred. So that's that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Director McKenna.
I want to thank the Cathedral City Fire Department. A friend of mine lives in Pasadena, and he was evacuated. He's back in his house, but he spotted a Cathedral City Fire Department truck in his neighborhood, and I thought, these people really do, ride into the valley of death. And I think it's worth recognizing the contribution they made to the Eaton Canyon fire. The Eaton Canyon fire and Pacific Palisades fire together will possibly be one of the most expensive natural disasters that this country has faced. Certainly in California is most expensive. It may not be right to characterize them as a natural disaster since the Eaton Canyon fire was probably caused by, Southern California Edison, them again. And both of these fires, I think, were exacerbated by climate breakdown that we're experiencing. So I hope we get really serious about our commitment to sustainability and to, doing our part to reduce this climate disaster that we're facing. I want everybody to be serious about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No comments or requests, thanks.
Okay. And I have nothing else to add. So with that, it is a little after 10 o'clock. If we could end the public part of this meeting and move into closed session meeting at 10 after 10, that would be fantastic. Great. Welcome back. I can. Oh, I got the nod from Sylvia. Yeah. Okay. So we are back in open session, and I can report that there was no reportable action taken during the closed session. And with that, we can close this meeting. Thank you very much.